Hello everyone, it's Ranger at 64, and welcome back to another League of Legends lore reading video. Today, we will be reading the biography of K'Sante, the Pride of Nazumah. Defiant and courageous, K'Sante battles colossal beasts and ruthless ascended to protect his home of Nazumah. A coveted oasis amid the sands of Shurima. But after a falling out with his former partner, K'Sante realizes that in order to become a warrior worthy of leading his city, he must temper his single-minded drive for success. Only then can he avoid falling prey to his own pride, and find the wisdom he needs to defeat the ferocious monsters threatening his people. K'Sante grew up in Amirish in his homeland's history. At dinner, his father told tales of their ancestors who used bravery and strength to resist the tyranny of the Ascendant. His mother recounted the fearsome beasts these Nazuman founders slayed as they traversed south through Shurima, eventually discovering a rich in the rarest of the desert treasures, roaring waterfalls, forested cliffs, and plentiful fauna, far from the reaches of the prideful Ascendant that was where the free Republic of Nazumah laid its roots. K'Sante absorbed every word, vowing to become Nazumah's greatest warrior hunter, and one who could live up to the heroes from those stories and lead his people for generations to come. For 2 decades, K'Sante trained under various martial teachers. However, it was his parents who taught him to respect Nazumah's enemies, ruthless predators and imperialist warlords who coveted the city-states' resources. Remaining a free republic would require more than brute strength. They reminded him during his training, K'Sante studied with Nazuman scholars, learning how the materials reaped from formidable marks were used to craft advanced weaponry and infrastructure that enabled their homeland to thrive for 5 centuries. On his early hunts, K'Sante forged many friendships, but his closest was with a young man named Topt from Marokmark. Where K'Sante was a blazing force in close combat, Tope specializes in range assault. Their chemistry was unmatched, as they bested rock bear herds, shakal raiding parties, and even sheer size stampedes. And as their teamwork grew stronger, so too did their bond. One starlit evening, K'Sante confesses to Tope, admitting his feelings went beyond camaraderie. When he learned that Tope felt the same way, the two lovingly embraced and shared their first kiss. Together, in that moment under the stars, all seemed right. But all was not. 2 ascended, Emperor Azir and Magnus Zareth, ravaged the continent in a war for dominance over Shurima, both deploying monstrous abominations amongst their forces. Nazuman scouts soon sighted one such creature, a colossal predator shaped like a lion, and a cobra that had wandered astray and was now terrorizing the nearby savannah. When the city-states leaders asked who could quell the beasts, K'Sante and Tope pledged their might. On their first attempt, the beasts deflected their every attack, with powers neither man had seen before. They discovered that its armor, stretching from head to tail, regenerated from non-lethal blows. The men failed to draw blood and were forced to flee from the Cobra Lion's hair, and with their hands empty, leaving it to run wild rampage around the savannah. And so they tried again and again. K'Sante's frustrations burned. To become Nazumah's greatest, he had to slay this beast. Nothing less mattered. He trained dawn to dusk, convinced Tope would understand. Tope, meanwhile, studied the beast. He presented Cassante with strategies, watching his partner nod along in between assaults on their countless practice dummies. Quickly, Tope questioned if the two of them were strong enough. Their biggest success was an encounter where they managed to claim a piece of the Cobra Alliance's armor. Tope hailed this as progress and thought that if they sought more help, they could make even more headway. But Cassante seethed. He'd begun to see the Cobra Lion as his undertaking alone, and anything short of slaying the beast was a failure. The heroes he idolized when growing up never failed in battle, so Cassante couldn't either, especially not by accepting more support in what had become his battle to prove. He tried Tope's ideas, which weren't working, and now Tope believed they weren't strong enough. Cassante wouldn't accept it. He began to wonder if Tope was holding him back and soon dismissed Tope's strategies as futile. Hurt, Tope insisted that tacticless training was no better. Cassante, once admirable determination, had turned into a self-serving, single-minded drive. As their pain and anger flared, further encounters with the Cobra Lion resulted in further infighting, and the words they exchanged became fewer and fewer until there were none at all. Finally, it seemed the only thing they could agree on was to go their separate ways. Over the next year, Cassante kept training, stubborn and alone. His progress was measurable, but progress wasn't victory. He eventually had the crushing realization that strength alone could not fell the creature. He needed help. Cassante gathered the courage to visit Tope's home, only to learn his former partner had returned to Marromark. He was, instead, greeted by Tope's aunt. On Cassante's way out, she handed him Tope's journal, explaining that her nephew had left it to assist Cassante in his fight against the greatest monster. Cassante pored over Tope's journal. Gradually, he noticed the patterns in their mistakes, and when he arrived at the Cobra Alliance's notes, Cassante was stunned. Tope claimed that the beast was a Bakai, a failed ascended being. He theorized that Zareth, known for his vile misuse of magic, had forced Shuriman fauna to fuse via the Ascension ritual. Engrossed, Cassante read the journal from front to back, discovering Tope's theories about how to slay the Bakai. So many ideas Cassante had never considered himself. And by that evening, he formulated a plan to practice Tope's methods on lesser monsters. As his skills grew, Cassante recalled his parents' teachings, realizing pride had led him astray. He'd never respected Tope's ideas enough to try them in earnest. Truthfully, Cassante had respected his foe more than his partner. In time, he accepted his shortcomings and steadily moved on. Thankful for what they had shared, but also grateful to walk his own path with a newfound perspective. Beneath a scarlet sky, Cassante approached the Cobra Lion once more. He calculated every maneuver, dodging when the beast struck, and striking when the beast slipped. Sunrise became sundown. His weapons were shattered, and his body bloodied, but his spirit was unyielding. When the creature tried, at long last, Cassante found his opportunity, inspired by Tope's theories, and cornered his foe against a Nazuman waterfall, where the natural waters weakened the Cobra Lion's armor, allowing Cassante to finally land a fatal blow. Exhausted, Cassante stood tall, proud not of what he had accomplished, but of the journey he had taken. Cassante was celebrated by Nazumah upon his return. Following tradition, he donated the creature's body to the scholars for study, keeping only a couple slabs of its armor to refine the design of his signature Nintofo weapons. They were now engineered to retain the armor's regenerative properties so that when their heavy outer layer shattered, Cassante could still wield them as sharp blades until they reformed. For a finishing detail, he carved onto each Nintofo something Tope had drawn within his journal, a symbol representing the Cobra Lion. Though their time together had ended, Cassante knew his success was not achieved alone. Today, Cassante is hailed as the Pride of Nazumah, but if he ever to become its greatest leader, he's learned he must never again let ego cloud his judgment. His home's future, with the ascended threat looming, is uncertain. But Cassante knows that should Azir or Zareth dare to march southward to their home, he stands, all ready to fight.